European stock markets are open for a brand new trading week, and we come off the back of what was a downbeat trading action last week. Stateside, also here in Europe, the range is down by roughly 2%, although the FTSE here was somewhat of an underperformer, falling to the extent of about 3.5%. So that is a step up from the broader European markets that were down roughly 2.4% in the range. The French market, a little bit off that, 1.6% lower for the DAX trading last week compared to 2+% down for those US averages. So a lot of red ink, and this morning there was a big question mark as to whether Chinese authorities would stimulate the market by effectively moving on some of their rates. We did see a move on the rates, the LPR, but only on the 1 year, not on the 5 year, and not by as much as the market had anticipated. So we are seeing disappointment roll across some of those Chinese boards today on the back of the moves by the PBOC. Here in Europe this morning, clearly the resources sector the one to watch, and some of the other areas around autos too. At this point, the stock strip 600 not making much progress. We've got a little bit of red, but that is matched with green at this point, and we're not straying too far from this flat line. And let's just dig into those individual areas of the market, then the sectors that we're seeing at this point. Fairly evenly split. Oil and gas at the top, real estate at the bottom. We've got a drop here of about 0.5% early on. It is the laggard. Construction, that is also tracking lower, modestly downbeat by about 0.25%. Household goods, some give back there as well. Some of the major luxury names, the bellwether LVMH, just slightly weaker at the start, along with Burberry. Insurance names reversing, down by about 0.1%. Telcos, utilities, some of the more defensive parts of this market, not trading too strongly at the start of the session. Media moving slightly lower. Retail names on the flat line, along with industrials and travel and leisure. No progress really on these sectors at this stage. Chemicals, we're lifting by about 1/10 there. Banking names, we are also ahead. The likes of SocGen, BBVA, all moving positive. Autos, Ferrari is at the top of that basket. Technology, we mentioned Nvidia. That is a big one for the sector this week for chips for semiconductors when it reports numbers. And you can see the technology basket is trading slightly ahead today. Basic resources. We are positive. That is interesting on the back of the China news today, only slightly about 0.1%. That said, there's been a lot of downbeat action as we've seen a string of downbeat data points out of the Chinese market. Healthcare names up 0.4%. Oil and gas is trading up by about 0.7. Let's get into what the individual indices are doing at this hour, and it's a 7265 on the FTSE. We've managed to lift by about 2 points, which is barely anything on the back of that slide of about 3.5% last week. 2/10 north on French stocks, about 1/10 up on the Xetra DAX, slightly more on the Italian stock market. Otherwise, very slim ranges on these charts. Let's get into the resources side as China's central bank has cut its 1 year loan prime rate by a smaller than expected 10 basis points to 3.45% and defied expectations for a cut in its 5 year LPR, which most mortgages in the country are pegged to, keeping the rate on hold at 4.2%. Faltering growth and challenges in China's property sector had fueled expectations of stronger intervention from the central bank after announced surprise cuts to short and medium-term rates. Let's take a look at the autos, and I mentioned Ferrari, one of the top performers, 1.1% higher there, modest ranges elsewhere across on the charts. To the chip makers, and early on we saw a little bit of strength in some of the semiconductors. This is how it looks up close. ASML slightly higher, ASMI the one doing a lot of the heavy lifting in the basket. It's got a pop of just over 1% at this stage. To the big luxury names, I mentioned LVMH, a slight retreat there for that stock for the bellwether, and you can see it is one patch that has now moved higher, up now by about 0.1%. So morning action quite choppy in the stock. Hugo Boss is down, L'Oreal in the red. Elsewhere we've got a little bit of green on Swatch. To German producer prices, they did fall markedly more than expected in July, down more than 1% on the month and as much as 6% on year. It does suggest another sign that price pressures are easing in Germany's largest economy, thanks to largely lower energy prices. Xing out energy costs, producer prices were still up 2% on the year. To Total Energies and Inpex, they will acquire 100% of the gas field interest in Australia from PTTEP. Total Energies will take a 26% interest in the 418 square kilometre site in the Timor Sea, while Inpex will acquire the rest and operate it. And Covestro It is on our radar today. The stock's slightly higher. It's announced that Christian Bayer, as the CFO, taking over from Thomas Toepfer, who is joining Airbus as its new finance chief. The C-suite shake-up comes amid reports that Abu Dhabi's national oil company ADNOC is prepared to raise its takeover offer for the German chemicals group to $12.6 billion. Steve.
I'll just check.